Welcome back to Is This a Great Game or What? With the Hall of Famer Tim Kurkjian. I'm his son, Jeff Kurkjian. And Dad, it's good to see your face. You look good today. You look handsome. You look well rested. That makes one of us, but...
Jeff, I am not well rested, but I must say we've had an interesting week because your niece and nephew, Carson and Emma, age 5 and 3, went to a new school, a summer school, basically starting this week. And I'm sorry, this has nothing to do with baseball, but Kelly, your sister and the second co-host on the show, called me and said, Dad, I need a lunchbox for tomorrow because they need a lunchbox for summer school. So Kelly didn't have one on a Sunday night. So I said, don't worry, I have one. So I went in my closet and got my Get Smart lunchbox, brought it over in the morning, and they put Emma, age 3, her lunch into a Get Smart lunchbox with Maxwell Smart, my all-time favorite sitcom character, with the phone to his ear, and a 3-year-old carried that into school on Monday. It was one of the greatest pictures taken in the history of the Kurkjian family. I sent it to a few people who I know love Get Smart and love Emma, and they thought it was the funniest thing they've ever seen. But Jeff, the preschool has a bunch of little kids there. The teachers are all 20s and 30s, okay? And the moms are all 20s and 30s. So I'm sure not one person understood who Get Smart was.
Not a single person knew what was going on. But as you told me back in the days of, 1 a.m. Sports Center and Baseball Tonight, mostly, when you would make a joke on a highlight reel, you said as long as one person gets it out there at 1 o'clock in the morning when you make a Miracle Max reference, and only one person gets it, then that's worth it. And you know what? In my broadcast career, I've learned one thing. That is a terrible way of thinking of it, but when it's 1 a.m. and you say no one's watching and nobody cares, who cares? Why not? So I love that. Right. I saw that photo come in, and it was absolutely adorable and hysterical.
Right. And I explained to Emma that this was the lunchbox that I used when I was a little kid, which is actually not the truth, but I didn't want her to feel like, she's supposed to be going to school with an Elsa lunchbox, not a Maxwell Smart lunchbox. So that made it easy. Then we got her a real lunchbox for day number 2. So it was really good. So like 2 people at the entire preschool, summer school got it, me and Kelly, and that was it. I don't even think Mark got it because he didn't grow up watching Get Smart like I did, and then I passed along to you and Kelly as I corrupted your childhood so badly.
I'll never forget, to tie this to baseball, Dad, we had a Honda Odyssey with a DVD player that was the size of most iPhones these days, by the way.
Right.
How crazy is that to think about, right? It's not even close to the size of an iPad. It's like an iPhone. Right. But you and I drove up to Cooperstown, and I sat in the back because you told me to. I would love to sit in the front with you and chat on the way up, and you said, no, I brought something, and you brought your DVD Get Smart with you, and you punched it in, and Dad, it was... And now as a dad, I understand. You were like, I felt bad, and you kept saying, no, I can see it. I can see it in my head, even though the screen obviously is only for the passengers in the back. Now when my daughter watches Toy Story on her tablet, which is twice the size as the TV I had, I can see it when I'm driving, like in my head, so I'm being entertained in a way, which is kind of funny. So I am having a full circle moment here, Dad, and I remember Get Smart very well.
Right. And as I've said way too many times, I only know 3 things in life: baseball, basketball, and sitcoms from the 60s. So there is a connection here. And Jeff, speaking of the show, Kent Mercker in Tuesday's episode was just hilarious.
Iconic,
and the stories that he told were were breathtaking. They made me laugh. They made me think. And he said told about 5 to 10 stories. I'm not sure I've ever heard. So Joe Ostermeyer, who's our dear friend now from St. Louis, I've never met Joe, or I have. It's been a long, long time. But he said after listening to Kent Mercker, he sent in this email that Kent Mercker and he, when Joe was a journalist in St. Louis working and covering the Cardinals and everything, he and Kent Mercker used to have daily talk seemingly about the Kennedy assassination and what happened. Was it a lone gunman or was it a conspiracy and all that? So he gave this book, which was called Case Closed, to Kent Mercker. And then like 3 days later, Kent Mercker got traded again. So Joe thinks, well, Kent's gone, my book is gone. And 3 years later, Kent Mercker goes back to St. Louis and he has that book with him and gives it back to Joe Ostermeyer. Does that not speak pretty highly of Kent Mercker? He kept that book all that time and then goes, oh, this is Joe's book. When I go back to St. Louis, I'm bringing it to him. And he did. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, I mean, Kent Mercker is just an all-around stand-up guy. Absolutely fantastic. That doesn't surprise me at all. And, Dad, ironically, I just started a show on Netflix, as if I have any time to watch TV these days.
Yeah.
I just started a show on Netflix called 11/22/63, right? And it's based upon the Stephen King novel. It's a show starring James Franco. It came out like 10 odd years ago, right? I'm late to it, but it's on Netflix. And I've always been fascinated. You with Sacrifice Flies, me with the Kennedy assassination and Lincoln assassination. I don't know why. I've always been fascinated with them. The lone gunman theory and the Texas Book Depository. I know it sounds weird, but I'm definitely into it. And I'm bummed because I didn't have Kent Mercker. I didn't know that in my head, or else I would have asked him about his theories and his thoughts on that. I know you have, respectfully, no interest other than baseball, but this is one thing that, like, I have a weird obsession with. Like, the Titanic as well is in my list of, like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I definitely love diving into, kind of weird thoughts about all that stuff.
Right. And Jeff, please, I'm not poking fun or making fun at one of the worst days in American history, but Archie, speaking of sitcom characters, Archie Bunker called it the Texas School Book Suppository during one of the episodes. I mean, that's what TV was allowed to be TV, not anymore. All right, enough of Get Smart, enough of Kent Mercker, who was fabulous. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. You will laugh and learn for at least an hour and 10 minutes. It was great.
Right. And, Dad, I think it's important, since we already know ahead of time who is our guest next week. Rich Donnelly is going to be joining the show.
Right. And
the
Rich
greatest
Donnelly,
batting practice pitcher of all time.
Pitcher ever. And one of the greatest third base coaches of all time. And a guy who's been to a lot of places with a lot of stories to tell. Just another guy who made us laugh out loud for an hour straight. So we love that. That's what we do on this show. We laugh and we learn, hopefully.
So make sure you subscribe wherever you're watching right now. We're trying to up those YouTube numbers, right? So we want to hit a certain amount of subscribers before the end of the month. We want you to be a part of that. Just go to YouTube, search, Is This a Great Game or What? Because if you're not watching the podcast, that's cool. I understand. I personally don't watch a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts because mowing the lawn, can't watch a podcast and mow the lawn. My lines won't be straight at all, Dad. Not at all. Also, thank goodness for the rain. Side note, just a dad moment there. My gosh, my lawn needed it. But subscribe on YouTube right now to watch the podcast whenever. And also follow wherever you're listening, of course, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And take a minute to leave a review. And also, if you have a second, share it with a friend. If there's a baseball fan in your life that you think would love listening to Tim and Jeff Kurkjian chat baseball and chat mowing the lawn, we want you... we want them
and chat Get Smart, right?
And chat Get Smart. We want them to be a part of the family. It's super easy. Again, just share the podcast wherever you watch or listen, and make sure you subscribe and follow.
Hey, SeatGeek is MLB's official ticket marketplace, and in addition to finding every single game on the MLB calendar, there are big events coming up very soon.
There's an all-star game, there's a home run derby, and if you think you're perfect and you can pick the right seat at the home run derby to get the most home run balls, you can get the little green dot, and that might be your lucky seat. Don't go red dot, though, because you might not get any balls. But go green dot, and get as many home run balls as you think you can catch.
Yep, you click the seat, you check out what your view is. Each ticket's rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. And that's what AJ's talking about. Green good, red bad, with those dots. And the code for you, Territory10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any MLB tickets with promo code Territory10. Make sure you click the link in the description of this episode. That'll help you download the app and get the code automatically added to your account so that you can use it later. Thank you to SeatGeek.
Let's go to the takeaways. What do you have for us?
Well, it was a fascinating week in baseball, but the Yankees look really good again. They've been up and down. They went like 0 for 23 with runners in scoring position, but they still lead the major leagues in home runs, and they're just a couple percentage points behind the Brewers for the lowest ERA in the major leagues. So in the last 75 years, the 2020 Dodgers, which was the COVID year, are the only team in the last 75 years to lead the major leagues in home runs and the major leagues in ERA. I mean, that's a pretty good and important combination there. In the last 25 years, no American League team, just American League team, has led the American League in home runs and ERA. So what the Yankees are doing, at least so far, is and it's potentially historic and really, really impressive. To me, they are the team to beat, certainly in the American League. But in this crazy American League, where at this taping, only 3 teams have a plus run differential, anything is possible as we move forward.
Yeah, and it partially thanks to Lollipop Jazz Chisholm. You see him with the lollipop on the field.
Yeah, and Aaron Boone, his manager, was not pleased that his second baseman had a Tootsie Pop or a lollipop in his mouth during the playing of the game. And Jeff, I don't want to be an old fuddy-duddy or some angry old man, because I'm not. But I don't think you should be eating the Tootsie Roll with the stick coming out of your mouth during a major league game. Am I overreacting here? Aaron Boone, his own manager, was not pleased.
Well, I agree, but I agree that you're not like a crotchety old man, but when you said, I'm not like that, it sounded like you are.
Well, I'm not, I promise you. But yeah, enough of that. All right, the Padres are in a kind of an interesting spot. At this taping, they are last in the major leagues in runs per game, and yet they have a winning record. So since 1940, the 2003 Dodgers and the 2001 Mets are the only teams since 1940 to finish a season with the lowest run per game in the major leagues and still have a winning record. So it just shows you what the Padres are doing is a bit unusual. They don't score runs, but they somehow find a way to win games. And that's, of course, because they have among other things, a great bullpen. And Jeff, the Mason Miller thing is just getting ridiculous. 21 saves, no blown saves, 34 innings, Jeff, 14 hits allowed,
wow,
and 66 strikeouts. So here we are on June the 24th on this taping. He's averaging almost 2 strikeouts every inning. I mean, it's insane what he's doing. Agreed?
It's unheard of. And we called it a couple of weeks ago. If he keeps this pace up, there's Cy Young conversations there for a reliever. It's incredible.
Right. Incredible. Especially when there are other starters, Christopher Sanchez, Jacob Mizrowski, Paul Skeens, Chris Sale, just Kyle Harrison. They're everywhere.
It's a
amazing.
Pretty aggressive field in the National League for Cy Young. We've talked about it already, so I doubt that it'll go to a reliever, but it's exciting to see great pitching in the National League. I love it. I know people want to see big homers and big scores, but I love a pitcher's duel any day.
Right. And I tell you on almost every show, Jeff, I don't know how anyone gets a hit anymore when we watch the stuff that these hitters see on a daily basis. But Zach Geloff hit in 24 straight games for the A's. The streak ended when he spiked his own hand. His hand got spiked and he had to come out of a game. So it ended at 24 which again, that ties Ted Williams' longest hitting streak in his career. So great run, Zach, to get a hit in 24 straight games in this hitting environment. Pretty impressive. You agree, right, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what he's doing. It gives fans a reason to come out to the ballpark. This is, to me, it's the little storylines that the real fans are watching that make things a big deal, right? Whether it was Christopher Sanchez's scoreless streak, or, the hitting streak you talked about with the Athletics, anything like that. Mason Miller, right? These are the stories that keep fans coming back, especially during the dog days of summer. So I love to see that kind of stuff.
Right, absolutely. So I did the Levitard show the other day, and they put me in a headlock. Who should be the all-star shortstop in the American League as of the moment? So I picked, in the National League, I picked Otto Lopez of the Marlins because at the moment he's hitting .337. He's got 15 stolen bases. He's a good defender, and he's got a WAR over 3 already. So I picked him, and I think I picked the right guy. But C.J. Abrams of the Nationals is having quite a season also. 17 homers, 57 RBIs, OPS of 895. So this is really, really good, Jeff, that two guys who aren't considered massive offensive players, because they're such good defensive players, are having tremendous offensive seasons. And the fact that they're athletic shortstops makes it even better.
Yeah, I know Jeremy Taché was very, very pleased with your answer on who should be starting. I know those guys out of Miami were hype about it too. Listen, you don't need to be upset. We love the guys. But I have to tell you, you brought up Dan Levitard. I turned on the NBA draft last night, right? I grew up a Washington Wizards fan, so I had to just see who they're going to take with the first pick, right? My wife comes in with our newborn, and she's shocked because we don't really watch the NBA. We're a baseball household, right? She said, "What are we watching?" I said, "It's the draft. I just want to see who they take with the first pick." And out comes the commissioner of the NBA. And my wife looks at me and says, "Who is that?" And I said, "That's Adam Silver. He's the commissioner." And she goes, "Respectfully, he's an interesting looking guy." And he is. Like, he's an interesting looking guy. And I turn to her and I say, he is by far the most looks liked in history of the Dan Levitard show. And she just started laughing because she loves that game. What's one of your favorite Adam Silver looks like? Come on. Yeah, you have to remember one.
He looks like a lone French fry in a bag of onion rings. And the story I told the other day, Jeff, I was walking through a restaurant recently, and this guy, who I don't even know, just says hello, just says Tim, and he on his table has a basket full of onion rings, and he's got a French fry in the middle of it, and he goes, "Say hi to Adam Silver." Oh my God, it was so bad.
That's
because
incredible.
We're not making fun of Adam Silver. He's a great commissioner, and he's done a great job with the NBA. It's just that looks like game is so incredibly stupid, but it is really funny, and it is really cleverly done.
Absolutely.
All right, last thing, Jeff. Pete Crow-Armstrong has 10 homers in June. I mean, we talk all the time about his skill level. He's the best defensive player at any position on the planet. Craig Counsell said his speed, he might be the fastest guy in the game. He gets hits, he gets big hits. So let's just end it right there. But just for understand what happened Tuesday night in the Cubs game. Pete Crow-Armstrong is on first, and he's attempting to steal second. Ball 4 comes in, so Pete Crow-Armstrong gets to safely advance to second base because it's a walk. But he doesn't look in on the stolen base, so he does a head-first slide, touches second base, comes off the bag, and Bo Bichette tagged him out. And the umpires called him out. So technically, he was thrown out on ball 4. But Jeff, that's the rule, correct? He achieved the bag by touching it, but by removing himself from the bag, the rule is you are protected until he went on to the next bag. And even though he wasn't trying to go to third, he came off of the bag, was tagged out, and it's called an out. That's the rule. That's the umpire's rule. You umpired, I triple checked with some of our umpire experts. It's all true. Agree?
Well, I mean, yeah, you've established that you have moved to the next base. The walk has been complete, right? And now you're stepping off a bag, you get tagged. I mean, that's baseball 101 right there. If you get tagged and you're not on the bag, but obviously he had established that he is now on second. That's the important part. Obviously, if he hadn't yet stepped on second, then there's nothing there because he hasn't established. He's awarded that base for free, but he's not awarded it after he steps on the bag. So I saw a lot of fans who were upset about it, calling it a technicality. It's not a technicality, folks. It's the rule. We all have brain lapses. We all have moments where we go, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Well, this for PCA, not his best moment there.
Right. And also keep in mind, Jeff, when you are stealing second base, and so this is not the case because he advanced to second on a walk. If you slide through the bag, touch the bag, and just slide all the way through it and tagged out, you do not get credit for a stolen base there because you did not achieve the bag by holding the bag.
Right.
And so that's a rule too. And get this, I talked to Buck Showalter about this yesterday. And Buck told me that when he was in college, does this not sound like Buck Showalter? He wrote a paper in college about how you do not lose any time when you look in while running to second base on a stolen base attempt. He wrote a paper about that specific topic, and his findings were you do not lose any time by taking a quick look to your left to see what's happening. If Pete Crow-Armstrong had done that, he might have recognized this is ball 4, but since he didn't, he made a slide that took him off the base, and he was tagged out, basically trying to go to third, even though that was not his intent. Is that clear?
Very, very clear. And I love that Buck Showalter. I mean, we've had him as a guest twice now, and he would be the first guy I would call when that moment happened to get his thoughts.
Because he wrote a paper on it, Jeff. I just love it. This is how Buck, that's how he does everything.
When my puppy Bella has something wrong, I'm not going to go around Googling what to do.
Yeah, Kratz, let's have a better plan. Today's episode is sponsored by the ASPCA Pet Health Insurance Program. It offers customizable accident and illness plans that can fit your budget, your lifestyle, and even your pet's particular quirks. Because let's be honest, vet bills can add up fast. ASPCA Pet Health Insurance has been around for almost 30 years and has covered over 1 million pets. And when it's time to submit a claim, it's easy. Just use their app and receive reimbursement for eligible vet bills directly into your bank account so you can get back to focusing on what really matters, your pet. To explore coverage, visit aspcapetinsurance.com/foul. That's aspcapetinsurance.com/foul. Again, that's aspcapetinsurance.com/foul. This is a paid advertisement. Insurance is underwritten by either Independent American Insurance Company or United States Fire Insurance Company and produced by PTZ Insurance Agency Limited. The ASPCA is not an insurer and is not engaged in the business of insurance.
Let's go over right now, Dad, to our game changer of the week. What do you have for us?
Well, the game changer of the week is Kyle Schwarber of the Phillies. Now, I don't want to say he's the game changer of the week because he's one of the game changers of the last essentially 20 years in baseball as we've gone to the 3 true outcomes, 20 years, 10 years, whatever you want to call it, walks, strikeouts, homers. Kyle Schwarber at this taping leads the major leagues with 29 home runs, and he's slugging .544. He's also on a pace to strike out 235 times, which would be the most in one season by any player in Major League history.
Oh, my God.
So, and he's got a chance. Shohei Ohtani holds the record for fewest RBIs at the time of their 30th homer. Schwarber has 29 homers, 52 RBIs. Shohei Ohtani last year, 30 homers, 55 RBIs once he got to 30 homers. But the point about all this is, Jeff, is Kyle Schwarber is a really, really good player. So people say, oh, he walks too many times, he strikes out too much. No, in 2023, Jeff, he batted under 200 and got votes for the MVP, not the first place vote or anything like that, but he was put on an MVP ballot batting under 200. It's my understanding he's the only one ever to do that as a position player in the major leagues. And he's having a much better year this year, but it just goes to show you this is the change baseball has made 10, 20 years ago. Hit the ball out of the ballpark, get on base. If you strike out in between, it's not that big of a deal. And Kyle Schwarber is like the poster boy for this. He is changing the game because he's playing on really good teams. He's one of the great team leaders. So all these things that Dave Kingman did many years ago, and then to a lesser degree, Joey Gallo, and then Adam Dunn, who hit nearly 500 homers. Kyle Schwarber is doing all of that, but he's doing it for really, really good teams. And he's an exceptionally effective player. And Jeff, he's 33 years old. He's got 369 homers. What do you think his chances of hitting 500 are?
I mean, with that big contract he just signed in Philadelphia, that would be really, really neat to see a 500 homer club. I mean, the real conversation has to be, is he Hall of Fame caliber at the end of his career? If he keeps up at some sort of pace, we're going to be having a real conversation about Kyle Schwarber in the Hall of Fame. And I know I'm showing a little bit of my bias, being that I live in the Philadelphia area and I cheer for the Phillies, so don't come at me for that. But if he hits 500 homers, there's a real conversation about him being in the Hall of Fame, without a doubt, at 500 home runs. Will he get there?
It's going to be a fascinating process. So he is our game changer because he has taken the three true outcomes and turned it into something really, really important for his team and for the league.
Our Game Changer of the Week brought to you by our friends at GameChanger. We absolutely love them. The #1 youth sports app that helps you coach smarter, connect live, and replay the action. You can learn more at gc.com. GameChanger's great, Dad, because, once your grandkids, all 5 of them, become old enough to be playing in some sort of youth sport, organized sport, you can watch a game from wherever. So if your grandson Bodie has a big game, you can watch on GameChanger, which is really cool, right?
Right. Absolutely. He's going to get a hit off of, Nick Puck's. He's going to get a hit off of Nick Puck's son. Is that
Close.
right?
Nick Pack, but we'll go
Nick
with
Pack's
that.
son. Right.
Hey, Nick Pack was the kid. Everybody had one in their town that was bigger than every other kid before every other kid grew. And he was a hard-throwing kid. Left-handed kid. Yeah. And I like that he was lefty because it was a little less scary. But, I mean, I took him over the third baseman's head at Darnestown Park. Man, good times. Good times. Anyway.
Best swing of your life, Jeff. Yes.
That only swing of my life, let's be honest. All right, Dad, let's go into the Kurkjians. What do you have for us?
All right, so Jake McCarthy of the Rockies the other day hit a walk-off 3-run triple. That is the 21st such walk-off 3-run triple since in the live ball era 1920 on. And the first since Grady Sizemore did it in 2006. And the interesting part about both of those guys, Grady Sizemore and Jake McCarthy, 2 tremendous high school running backs. Tremendous. I mean, they broke all sorts of records. And here they're the last 2 guys to hit a walk-off 3-run triple. So, Jeff, the interesting part about this is that, the Rockies were behind 2-0 going to the bottom of the 9th inning, and then Jake McCarthy won it with one swing, a hard ground ball over third base. And since he runs so well, everybody scored. So only 2 other players have ever had a walk-off 3-run triple when their team was down 2-0. In 1953, Harry Hanebrink did that for Milwaukee, and in 1932, Charlie Berry did that for the White Sox. So that was a very interesting play, and obviously one that we don't see very often because it is hard to hit a walk-off triple on any level. This was a walk-off 3-run triple.
Yeah, you don't see that too often, but it sure got the crowd fired up, that's for sure. I saw the replay. Right. It was like, that's exciting. Right. I wish I was there.
Pretty cool. Yeah. So the Yankees have had a lot of trouble scoring runs lately, Jeff. Can't get a big hit with runners in scoring position. The other day, they stole 6 bases in one game and only scored 1 run. You would think if you steal 6 bases in a game, you can manufacture more than 1 run. But it was the first time since 2015, Cleveland at Kansas City, that any team stole 6 bases in a game and only scored 1 run. Do you find that interesting?
You would think with that kind of base path movement, they'd be just circling the bases all day. Yeah, that's frustrating. I wonder what Aaron Boone was saying. Former guest of the show, mind you.
Right. Okay, so the other day, the Braves used Joey Bart, who they just acquired in a deal. He is their 8th catcher that they've used this year. That's the most catchers that any team has used through 75 games of any season since 1900. And the record for most catchers used in one season is 9 by the 1911 Phillies, the 1914 Pirates, and the 2021 Cubs. So they are one short through 75 games of having the most catchers used in one season. And it hurts that Drake Baldwin, their everyday catcher, just came off the injured list. And, they have a bunch of other catchers who've been hurt all year. 8 catchers, Jeff, through 75 games. That's pretty hard to do. Agreed?
Yeah, we got almost 90 to go, and they're only 1 away from the record. At this point, put me in, coach. Let's get it.
Yeah, pretty cool. Well, speaking of nothing, the Diamondbacks and the Cardinals were 0-0 through 8 innings the other day, and the Cardinals scored 3 in the ninth, and the Diamondbacks scored 4 in the ninth. So it was 0-0 through 8, and then 4-3 in the ninth, and that was the final score. It was the first time since 2014, Toronto against Detroit, that a game was scoreless through 8 innings, and then each team scored at least 3 runs in the 9th inning. So we've had a bunch of those games this year, Jeff, where just these incredible, it's 9-5 after 1 inning, or, in the extra innings, and the Phillies just had one of these games, Tuesday night against the Nationals. You read about that, right? You were watching that, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they scored, I think, 8 runs in the bottom of the 8th and the bottom of the 9th inning. It was just insane. Their 9th inning, and in the 9th inning, they scored all their runs with 2 outs. It was crazy.
Right. So, Jeff, it was the first time, and the Elias checked this for us, first time since 1961, and they couldn't go back any further. So who knows how long this went back. Phillies became the first team since at least 1961 to enter 9th inning behind. The first 2 guys make an out, so now they're 2 outs. Then 10 consecutive batters reach base, and the team leaves the 9th inning ahead. That's what happened to the Phillies. First time that's happened in, 65 years. And you watch that game, unless you were asleep, because you got to get up at 4:30 every morning. It's just so many of these crazy games have happened where there's this incredible score in the first inning, or nothing happens until the 9th inning, or a team gets 10 runs, as the Giants did against the Nationals this year, late in the game. All sorts of wacky things have happened. So that was a keeper, that game right there. And you know how much I love, Jeff. You know how much I love names, but I'm sure you didn't notice this. Who started that game for the Phillies?
Oh,
Jesus Luzardo started that game.
You talking about Brad Lord?
Yes.
Jesus and Lord?
Right. Jesus Luzardo started the game, and Brad Lord got the loss in the game. So we had Jesus and Lord pitching in the same game. And
Tim, that's Jesus. He's the other one. Jesus salute, Dan Patrick. Had to do it.
Right. And Jeff, in that game, Jesus Luzardo pitched 6 2/3 innings, gave up 5 earned runs, walked 3, and struck out 13. The last pitcher to do all 3 of those things in any start was Randy Johnson in 1990. So that game was a gigantic Kurkjian, finishing with Jesus Luzardo, the starter, and Brad Lord, the losing pitcher for the Nationals.
All right, Dad, let's jump into On This Date in Baseball History. Today's June 25th. You got anything fun for us?
Yeah, I remember this game, Jeff, because I was a hopeless San Francisco Giants fan, even though I lived 3,000 miles away. In 1968, I was 11 years old, and Bobby Bonds came up, played his first major league game, and in his first major league game, he hit a grand slam. So he joined Bill Duggleby of the Phillies in 1898 as the only two players to hit a grand slam in his major league debut. And just understand, Jeff, the Bonds father and son are the greatest father-son combination ever to play. Better than the Griffeys, better than anyone. And I watched Bobby Bonds a lot growing up. He was a great defensive outfielder. He could fly, stole a million bases, hit a lot of homers. And so anyone who wonders where did Barry Bonds get most of his ability, or at least some of his ability from, it was from his dad, Bobby Bonds.
Yeah, that father-son.
Also,
where
Jeff,
do you think I got this great voice from? We all pass down different things.
Right. Talk about strikeouts, Jeff. Bobby Bonds struck out a lot. Right. Okay. You struck out with your voice, thanks to me. Sorry about that.
Let's hope my son Bodie sounds like a man. That'd be great.
All right. There'll be a quiz after this one, Jeff. But in 1976, Toby Harrah became the only shortstop in Major League history to not have one fielding chance in a doubleheader. So he played both ends of the doubleheader, played all 9 innings in both games, and had no fielding chances as a shortstop. So Toby Harrah, what is the question I'm going to ask you about Toby Harrah?
Toby Harrah is, have I ever been to Harrah's in Las Vegas?
No, he's a palindrome, Jeff.
Oh, yes,
Harrah. All right, I covered Toby Harrah many years in Texas. Got a big kick out of him. Really fun guy and a really good player. But that day in 76, the ball was never hit to him at shortstop in a doubleheader. That is absolutely amazing to me. All right, this is amazing too. In 2010, Edwin Jackson of the Diamondbacks beat the Rays 1-0 in a no-hitter. And Jeff, seriously, do you think anyone's going to finish a no-hitter these days when it's 1-0? Hard to imagine that, right? But this is the kicker. Edwin Jackson, 2010, threw 149 pitches.
Oh, my God.
And they left him in there because history was to be made. But it's one thing to keep him in there for 149 if you're up 10-0. Right. It was 1-0, and A.J. Hinch, the manager, left him in there. I love that he did, and so does Edwin Jackson, because he ended up with a no-hitter. Also on this date in 2021, your boy Aaron Nola, our kind of a friend of the show, given our ties to ALS, sadly, he tied Tom Seaver's record by striking out 10 consecutive batters.
Wow.
So just give me the great kicker to the Tom Seaver striking out 10 consecutive batters. What is the great note out of that?
He did it to finish the game.
Yes, the last 10 batters he faced.
That's right.
He struck out. Now look, 10 batters in a game is consecutive batters is pretty amazing, but the last 10 you face, pretty darn good.
Let's go to the Alphabest, Dad. We're going through the alphabet. We're on N. Do you want to start pitcher or batter?
Well, we always start with the batter. Everyday players always go first. And our N is Greg Nettles, who was one of the best defensive third basemen I've ever seen. He hit 390 home runs, most ever by a player whose last name starts with an N. Won a couple Gold Gloves at third base. There are no third basemen. There's nobody with a last name N, Jeff, position player in the Hall of Fame. Do you find that surprising?
Really?
It's kind of weird, right?
Is there? Yeah, I mean that does strike me as odd, because in the past in Alphabest, you've had to say, oh yeah, well he's the only whatever letter in the Hall of Fame, so we start there. But no N's. Interesting. In position players.
Pretty surprising. Yeah, really good player. And in retirement, he became a coach. And he was a coach, the first base coach briefly, for Buck Showalter's team in New York. And I have to tell this story. Mel Hall, who was on the Yankees at the time, runs through first base after making an out and is so angry that he throws his helmet, not to hurt him, but he throws it at Greg Nettles, who was one of the great Yankee players, one of the great Yankee third basemen of all time. And it was so disrespectful that Buck Showalter had a word with Mel Hall. But Greg Nettles, who is now a coach, not a star third baseman, goes into the dugout with Mel Hall's helmet, takes out a bat, puts the helmet on the floor of the dugout, and smashes it into 1,000 pieces and says, Mel, here's your helmet right here. Now, Jeff, the lesson there is we are teammates. We do not show up anybody on our team. We do not throw anything at anybody at our team, no matter how frustrated you are. And you certainly don't throw it at the greatest letter N of all time. Agreed?
Agreed. Let's go to pitcher, Dad. What do you got?
All right, I got Phil Niekro. Phil Niekro, very underrated because he threw a knuckleball, which I've always objected to. People think he's like any knuckleball or some kind of circus act, which is ridiculous. He won 318 games. He had a 3.35 ERA. He threw 45 shutouts in his career. And I love the Phil Niekro story when he won his 300th game. It was on a Sunday in Toronto. And he told me this story that he said, let's understand the Blue Jays had just clinched the division title. So the next day, the Sunday, he said, I'm sure, and I'm quoting here, they were all hungover. So, but the night before, Phil and his brother Joe, who was also on the Yankees, made a pact that Joe would pitch in the game because he would be, if Phil wins, he's in the same box score as Phil Niekro when Phil wins number 300. So Joe goes to the mound in the ninth inning of the game, and Phil has a shutout going. And by the way, has not thrown a knuckleball the entire game, even though he threw 95% knuckleballs, right? So Phil looks at his younger brother, Joe, and says, what are you doing out here? You're supposed to pitch in the game. You're not the pitching coach. And Joe says, well, I just wanted to deliver the news that if you pitch a shutout today, you will be the oldest pitcher ever to pitch a shutout in Major League history. And Phil Niekro looks at his younger brother and says, well, get the hell off the mound. I got to throw a shutout now. So the guy at the plate is Jeff Burrows, and they're runners at second and third. And the shutout's in doubt. Not really the game is in doubt, but they're still thinking about walking Jeff Burrows to load the bases. And Jeff Burrows, who was a teammate of Phil Niekro's in Atlanta, looks at Phil Niekro while in the batter's box and motions to him, pitch to me, meaning don't walk me intentionally. So they pitched to Jeff Burrows. And again, this is Phil Niekro's story. He told it to me verbatim. Jeff Burrows swung at strike three, which was a knuckleball that was like 3 feet outside of the strike zone. And it was the only knuckleball that Phil Niekro threw in that game. So no matter what you hear about Phil Niekro, always remember he's an underrated pitcher, not an overrated pitcher.
Well, and we can't talk about the Niekros without my favorite maybe ever Kurkjian, which was Joe Niekro hit one career home run in his great career, and it was off of his brother Phil.
Right, like 1,200 plate appearances.
Right.
He hit one homer, and it was off his brother Phil. Again, this is the beauty of baseball, the symmetry, how things just line up so perfectly. So that's our Alphabest N, which, the M was a little easier to come up with, and we had Mays and Maddox. This week was pretty good, Nettles and Niekro, but some letters are a little harder than others.
Yeah, make sure you get your guesses in a little bit early here for O. We want to hear from you. GreatGameOrWhat.com. You can go on right now. If you scroll down, you can hit a button, hit a box, and message us directly. When we talk about guys like Joe Ostermeyer, we talked about at the top of the show, all he does is go online, GreatGameOrWhat.com. That's how he gets in touch with my dad. That's how he gets in touch with me. So you can do the same, GreatGameOrWhat.com. Lunchbox.com is how you do it. Three cards in the bathroom. I don't know why I went into that theme song, but what do you got? Three cards in the bathroom. Let's see them.
Right. So the first one I picked out today was Walt Weiss, who is the manager now of the Atlanta Braves. He's doing a terrific job with that club despite all of these injuries. Walt Weiss, of course, won a World Series as the shortstop for the '89 Oakland A's. Switch hitter, incredibly reliable defensive player, baseball IQ off the charts. And he used to use a glove. I'm sure I told you this, Jeff, that was so old, it was basically falling apart in his hand, but it felt perfect on his hand. So he wasn't about to break in a new glove. He wore that glove for like his entire major league career, and he called it the Creature, which I just love that a guy would name his own glove and call it the Creature. And, he went to North Carolina and was a great college baseball player, played for Mike Roberts there. And Mike Roberts does some interesting things in teaching people how to run the bases and everything else. When they were in college, B.J. Suroff and Walt Weiss, those guys, they used to learn how to steal bases and run the bases while running in their bare feet. And they used to take infield sometimes without using a ball. And Mike explained it to me. He said, by doing it without a glove, without a ball, without a glove on, and without your shoes on, it helps you get in the flow, kind of like yoga. I'm quoting here Mike Roberts. And Mike learned from Hal Smeltzy, who was the baseball coach at Florida Southern, how to do these drills. And they really seem to work out. They really worked out for Walt Weiss as a player, very good player, and now a very good manager for the Braves.
All right, next card.
Okay, number two is Dave Stieb, who, if you remember last year, we named when we did Team Tim, best of all Tim. We had him as the best Toronto Blue Jay ever.
Oh, that's
right. He had the second best ERA of any starting pitcher in the 80s, second most wins to Jack Morris of any pitcher in the 80s. In a 12-month period, Jeff, he had 3 no-hitters broken up in the 9th inning. 3 in a 12-month period. And then eventually, 1990, he did throw a no-hitter. He had great stuff. He had a tremendous slider. And I don't know why I remember stupid things like this, but he told me once that he's right-handed, bats right-handed, throws right-handed, of course. He shoots a basketball with his left hand. I mean, how weird is that? I've given you all the weird ambidexterities, but here's one of the better right-handed pitchers of the last 50 years, and he shoots a basketball left-handed.
I didn't realize he was amphibious. That's incredible.
All right, last one is Ron Hasse. Ron Hasse was a really good dude and still a good dude and a very good catcher. The only catcher to catch 2 perfect games in his career. He caught Len Barker's perfect game for Cleveland in 1981, and then 10 years later caught Dennis Martinez's no-hitter for the Expos. And I got a kick out of this, Jeff, and I'm not poking fun at Ron Hasse. He'll be the first to tell you he's one of the slowest runners baseball has ever seen. And what is he doing in this baseball card picture, Jeff? What does it look like he's doing?
Is he laying down a bunt?
He's dragging a bunt, it looks like to me. And I forgot to double check how many bunt singles Ron Hasse had in his career. I'm sure there weren't too many. That just struck me as odd. A guy who doesn't run very well, he's a good hitter. Instead of having him swing the bat, he was a good catcher behind the plate. They have him with a drag bunt, Pretty cool.
Not exactly fitting of his character. It'd be like having your professional headshot and you're holding a power drill. You're like, that's not what Tim Kurkjian's known for. Changing the oil in his car, which you did. I'm not disputing. You've done it before.
Yeah, many times. And last thing, Jeff, on this, what is my little pet peeve about the drag bunt? Do you remember this? I don't want to overdo this, but this is the pedantic, little twit Tim Kurkjian saying that I think the only drag bunt that there is in baseball is when a left-handed hitter drags the ball with him down to the right side of the infield, in between the pitcher and the first baseman towards the second baseman, because he's dragging the ball with him. If a left-handed hitter bunts down the third baseline, to me, that's a push bunt. You can call it whatever you want, but I don't think it should be called a drag bunt. And anytime a right-handed hitter bunts for a hit, he's either pushing it up the first baseline or he's dropping it down the third baseline. The verbs are very important here, but I think the only time that you have a drag bunt, it can only be accomplished by a left-handed hitter. Am I being way too much of a pedantic little twit here?
Well, you always are, but I think in this case, we need to ask members of the family. Let us know in the comments, greatgameorwhat.com. And I'm also going to send a note over to Mike Shore, the commissioner, to see his thought. And maybe I'll get a voice note from him for next week, and we can see what he thinks about this whole drag bunt fiasco. I will say, I haven't heard this from you in the history of the pod, 3 seasons. So we'll see what people have to say. Greatgameorwhat.com. Again, you can chime in there, and I'll reach out to the commissioner and see what he has to say.
And Jeff, speaking of that, many, many, many years ago, Mickey Mantle was in Yankees camp as an instructor and a much-aged instructor. And he was teaching all the young players in Yankee camp how to do a successful drag bunt. And I always thought that was like the coolest thing. Here's a guy who hit over 500 homers, won a Triple Crown, but because he ran so well and because his baseball IQ was off the charts, he knew how to do a drag bunt better than anyone, and he hit over 500 homers. Do you find that cool?
It's so special. When you're great at everything, and there's no doubt about that one.
That's
all right,
pretty
Dad,
much Mickey Mantle.
Team Tim, wrapping up the show today. I don't even know what it's about. What do you got?
All right. So Joe Ostermeyer, who started the show with his great story about Kent Mercker and a book and all that stuff, he said, Tim, and this is controversial, this is hard, this is not my style, but he said, come up with the all Hall of Fame team of active players, guys that you think are going to or have the best chance at each position to end up in the Hall of Fame. And I changed it to, we're not going to pick anyone who is under 30 years old because we don't want mass statistical projections for Paul Skeens and Bobby Witt Jr. and all these other young guys who have come up and just taken the game by storm. So you have to be at least 30 years old to be on this list. But Jeff, this just proves again the great spot that baseball is in right now. You look around almost any night, and you're going to see a future Hall of Famer. I think I'm right about that. I'm not saying all these guys are in now, but if you look at where the trajectory of their career, I think you can project that they have a really good chance or a good chance to make it to the Hall of Fame.
All right, let's hear the list.
Understand the rules, right?
Yeah, understand the rules. Future Hall of Famers that are playing now over 30, go.
Right. Salvador Perez is our catcher, one of the better defensive catchers ever, and just passed George Brett for the most home runs in the history at home of the Kansas City Royals. And, he played on a world championship team. So he's my catcher. There are several first basemen, including Paul Goldschmidt, but I'm going with Freddie Freeman, who has a pretty good arc going towards the Hall of Fame, although Paul Goldschmidt's numbers are pretty darn good too. Jose Altuve is my second baseman. If he keeps up this pace, he's going to get really darn close to 3,000 hits with a bunch of steals, a Gold Glove, batting average above 300, a bunch of homers, and one of the best postseason resumes you'll find on hardly any player. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Third base is loaded. We've got Manny Machado, Nolan Arenado have a shot, but I'm going with, from the Cleveland Guardians, Jeff, Jose Ramirez. Agreed there? Right. That's a really hard choice because, all three of those guys are really good. But Jose Ramirez has a chance, Jeff, to someday, replace Bob Feller as the greatest baseball player in Cleveland history. And that is really saying something given how long the Indians/Guardians have been around. Mm-hmm. I'm playing Mookie Betts at shortstop because I'm not sure I could find another shortstop, but He's won an MVP and finished second 3 different times. Hits, home runs. He's really closing in on 300 homers now. An amazing career for Mookie Betts, and I think someday he'll be in the Hall of Fame. We've got him as our shortstop. So outfielders, Mike Trout, he's already in despite all of these injuries. Bryce Harper, we're going to play him in the outfield because the majority of his games have been in the outfield as opposed to first base. Aaron Judge, certainly on the fast track to the Hall of Fame, given with all the home runs that he has hit and the other amazing things that he has done. Shohei Ohtani, of course, is our DH, who we could also use as a pitcher. And we have also got, and speaking of pitchers, Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer are 2 guys who I'm pretty certain right now are going to be Hall of Famers. So this is a Joe Ostermeyer list. These are the guys that I picked. Again, some difficult choices here. I left some really good people off. I repeat, I'm not saying all these guys are in now or all of these guys are going to be in. I'm just saying these are the players at each position that have the best chance eventually to get in. Have I explained that properly, Jeff?
Absolutely. I only have one question because we talked about Kyle Schwarber's home run count and his current age.
Yes.
Do you think Aaron Judge will reach 600 home runs? 385 as of taping. Will he reach 600 home runs? What do you think?
Well, he's 34 years old, so he's got to hit 215 more homers. All right, I'm just going to say no, but that's certainly not going to affect
560.
Yes. Oh, he'll be in the mid fives. He'll hit 200 more home runs, but 250 more homers, that's going to be hard to do. We'll see.
All right. Well, we will follow up in 5 years, 6 years with this podcast.
Right.
I'll have 2 elementary school kids at the time. It'll be crazy. All right. Well, Dad, a great team, Tim. Thank you to everybody for always chiming in. GreatGameOrWhat.com is how you do that. And, of course, if you take a minute, do us a favor, subscribe, follow, comment, all the stuff on YouTube, and leave us a rating. Whether you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it goes a long way for helping our podcast get discovered to new baseball fans. All right, Dad, well, I'll talk to you soon. I know you got to go pick up your other grandkids, so I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, thanks for being a part of our family.